This podcast is owned and operated by the RCR Association, a private third party to the Department of National Defense. The content of this podcast is the responsibility of the RCR Association and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the Government of Canada. The official emblems of the regiment are used with the permission of Regimental Headquarters, the RCR. Feel whatever you'd like to share, and I appreciate it. Yo, I just want everybody to understand, because right now we're recording, that the guest today is a person that I deeply admire in the military, and I'm not just saying that because he's like right here, but honestly, Mario Glasnovic is somebody that I've heard of for a long time before I even met, through my posting in Toronto, that we both shared, in the sense that he was my predecessor, I'm sorry. He was my predecessor, so he was in this position before I ever was. And when I took it over, I met a mutual friend of ours, Eugene, a mutual colleague of ours as well. And, he used to speak very highly of you, man. And I'm like, yo, wow, and I'm like, man, this is like big shoes to fill, like how they speak of you.
Big feet.
But yo, man, from all the shit I used to hear about Eugene and like all the other guys over there, that used to hype. I don't want to say hype because that would imply like you're just like inflating it. But I want to say for the people that felt genuinely so happy to have known you and to have experienced like working with you, because we're talking about a reserve unit where this posting is, right? So for someone like you to be there, like Mario, like I got to work with you, bro, so I understand, like you have this level of dedication that I love, man. So I'm glad to have you here today to share with the folks, and hopefully like the people that are watching from outside of our generation get to see like there's guys, as people that I admire that are intelligent and about it, as I would like to say, and are very pleasant to work with, and I learned a lot, So our story. Let's talk about our story, but let's talk about your story first.
All right. What do I know first?
Yeah, so like when did you join the military?
2008. So that's a complex story. So I applied in 2001 first. And that's because I just moved to Canada in 2001.
So what's going on here?
So moved to Canada 2001, decided to join the military. At the time, you can join.
Like right away?
A few months in. Pretty much.
So you just got to Canada and you're like, yo, I'm going to join the military?
I'm going to join the military, and that was it, right? So applied to reserves. At a time, you can go as a landed immigrant. And I came as a refugee from Croatia. And
pre 9/11 or post 9/11?
Post 9/11. So March 2001.
This is March 2001, so pre 9/11.
Yes.
Okay.
So decided to join the military, go reserve because that's all I can do at a time. And the goal.
I'm sorry, where are you here? Like, where are you living?
Kitchener.
Kitchener,
yeah.
Okay.
So the goal was really join the military and go back to the Balkans, right? So someone like me who just grew up there, 18 years living there, I know the culture, I know the people, territory, I know the language. Figured I can contribute to the military, but also get a free ride back home for 6 months. And I applied. And obviously, because of what happened there in the 90s, it took a little while.
What happened?
The war in the 90s, in the Yugoslavian war, Croatia.
Can you explain for anybody who's like not very knowledgeable?
So if you're not very knowledgeable, there was a big war in the Balkans in the 90s. Just look it up. It's all kind of information on the internet over it. But it was similar, I would say, much smaller scale to what's happening in Eastern Europe right now too. And basically after the war, we moved over here as refugees. So there's a lot of peacekeepers over there, Canadians included too. So I got to see them as a kid.
Wow.
And
you remember that?
Absolutely, I remember. I was like 12 years old. So I always had a bit of an interest in the military, maybe growing up in a war and seeing peacekeepers kind of triggered that to me. But I wanted to go back there and do the same kind of thing myself. So I decided to join. And because of where I'm from, took a little while to get to the background check. But then the September 11th happened. And then we committed to Afghanistan. And then the policy changed and now you had to have citizenship to join. Even the reserves.
Is your application already in?
It was already in. It was already being processed in 2001, yeah. But then, because of this change of policy, they kind of stopped it. So 2004, 3 years in, I get the citizenship. But now I decided I may as well go rec force. So, that was the ultimate goal. So the whole thing started again. And as of 2004 to 2007 is when it took the background check. December 2007, I got my letter and an email saying that if I'm still interested, I could join. I was still interested. So finally, in June 2008 is when I was actually doing my basic.
Wow.
7-year wait.
Wow. So it finally happened.
Finally happened.
You got it done.
Yeah, 7 years, but I got it.
All right. So you're in Saint Jean?
I was in Saint Jean, yeah.
Okay. Wow. So you're going through your BMQ. Um, you're is it in your mind that you're going to go to Afghanistan? Like, is this something that you're already aware of? Or
At that point, yes. So originally, like I said, I wanted to go back to the Balkans, but 2008, that thing was done. Afghanistan was pretty popular at the time. I knew there was a high chance that I was going to end up over there, but I mean, that was what we were going to do. So I went in knowing that this is likely going to happen, and I personally wanted to do it myself.
What were your instructors like going through the system?
In Saint Jean, there was all kinds of different instructors because they were different of Navy,
Yeah, it's
CAF, Army, it's CAF level things. So everybody had different experiences. Some people have been to Afghanistan and they kind of brought more personal level of what to expect over there too and implemented it into the training. But it was very standardized too. It was a school institution. And most of my instructors were Navy and they were very professional to the point where they were focusing only on basic training.
Right.
And I mean, for us, crews at the time, that's obviously, but Verizon is just the graduation of basic training.
Yeah.
So that's all we focused on. And
you know what's interesting?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to cut you off, but like just to say, like to focus on basic training, like basic training is its own big stage in the whole military mechanism because that's where that's where you're set up. That's where you can be set up for success very well. Or you're going to be left still having to figure a lot of things out. And honestly, what you want out of a recruit has to be very clear and it has to be very regimented because whatever you develop in BMQ needs to be able to effectively service all branches of the military, no matter what occupation. And like, yeah, sure, some occupations require some more particular personality traits, like at least to tolerate. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I would say tolerating is a big part of it, and then you will adapt from that. Like you'll get fit enough, you'll learn the material, all that kind of stuff. But if you're willing to tolerate it, your desire for it or whatever, like that, you need to shape in a candidate to be like, yo, listen, man, like it doesn't matter if you fucking love this shit or not. Like you just gotta learn how to accomplish a goal, work together. You know what I mean? And how your instructors communicate that goal to you and for you to experience it under like that military experience, that's important. And like that needs to be such a huge focus. And I'm so sorry. I'm just like ranting, but we've talked about being an instructor and stuff. Yeah, sorry, continue.
So that was the BMQ, right? Graduate BMQ.
Yeah.
Then moved on to Meaford, went to my DP1 infantry right away, finished that, and ended up in the 3rd Battalion right over here, February 09. And basically right away we were told we were going to go to Afghanistan for 110, and I actually liked it. I preferred it. It was something to start off the career with, right? Like an actual goal. I had something, my goal was to finish basic, my goal was to finish DP1. I got to the battalion. What do I do next? Well, the goal was given to me. And I had that goal. It was to deploy and finish my first mission.
Wow. So, like, what company did you report to?
It was Oscar Company.
So
we were under one RCR battle group in 2010, but Oscar Company.
Okay, so you were deploying in 2010.
Yes.
So, can we back it up a bit and be like, what is it like to report to the battalion now? Like, what year is this that you checked in?
February 2009.
February 2009. So they already rotated back from 308?
No.
They were still there?
They were still there. April 2009 is when they came back.
So you checked in. There was like what? Like a skeleton, like a rear party going on?
There was still quite a few people. But
quite a few people?
Had, like the lead mining unit was 3 RCR for that tours.
Right.
Like I would say 2 full companies already there and then all the amenities.
Okay.
So yeah, there was definitely not as big of a battalion. And then in April, I started seeing a lot more people come back.
Yeah.
They went on their post-deployment leave. And then after that, the battalion became a battalion.
It was a full house.
It was a full house at the time, yeah.
Wow. So what's your experiences like being a new guy?
I would say same as everybody else. Nervous, scared, looking around, not knowing what to do, just trying to get out of trouble, having that course mentality of just do what you're told and keep your head down and make it through the day.
Were you big on like gear and stuff or?
No, not at the time. At the time, I just wanted to just make it through the day and
Yeah.
just earn my spot to deploy.
Yeah.
It-
Did you have people that you were excited to work for?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I had a really good crew right off the get-go.
Nice.
So based on my English, I guess, they picked me to be a platoon signaler for that deployment.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big job.
That is a pretty important job for a brand new Nova private, I would say.
Mhm.
But I was 27, I guess, when I deployed. So
So
a little bit more
mature.
than a regular brand new private. So maybe they picked it for that reason.
Mhm.
Just like my accent. Either way, got that job to be a platoon commander's party partner and listen to the radio. And my platoon commander was a pretty good guy, pretty like down to earth, knowledgeable, and very common sense guy. And my sergeant also, Sergeant Kevin White at the time.
Oh no way.
Very
Wow.
first sergeant, and
Shout out.
absolutely, and love him to the day. Right, taught me a lot of stuff himself, and showed me what leadership really is all about.
Do you remember like an example from him?
Yeah, so like up until that point, you're looking at a sergeant is just kind of like one of those instructors, one of those people that you have to really come up to, request permission to talk to. And once we were formed up as a platoon to deploy, he removed a lot of that barrier and made himself more like a mentor and a father figure than a sergeant, and made sure that we understand that we are all human beings and we're going to work together. And while hierarchy still exists, that is not necessarily the only thing to look at. We have to understand each other as people as well, not just the rank. There's someone behind that rank. And that's the first lesson I learned when I saw the sergeant being something else than just a sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that to heart.
Wow. So was he as in a position as your instructor?
No.
He wasn't? So so when did it change? Was it the workup training it changed or deployed it changed? Like
So
was workup training they were very strict? Like he was very strict, you would say? And
no, actually, I wouldn't say strict. He definitely had expectations,
right.
as everybody should. You had to really show that you're capable to do the job because over there.
That's important.
So he had a lot of expectations, and absolutely I support that. But in the same time, whereas school, I guess, would teach you differently how to handle failures, and they try to mentor you how to overcome those failures. He would not necessarily do the school mentality for it. He would just try to approach you rather than recruit more like a human being, and just try to mentor you in what you did wrong and how to do better. And it was a lot more approachable. And that approach took away a lot of barriers between basic private and sergeant, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that, I was more inclined to talk to someone of a much higher rank than me about anything that was going on through my mind.
Yo, what was the culture like back then? Was it like common to talk to them like that, eh? Like someone in a position of authority?
It was
so casually, you mean?
It was a little different because, a lot of people have just come back from the deployment, or a lot of people have done the 2-3 deployments in an instance. So a lot of people going through that kind of tour develop the personal bonds, and then when they come over here, it's hard to kind of like take that away,
right?
Go back to just a pure structure. It's necessary to maintain it. It's necessary to stay professional, but you cannot have somebody work with you for 2 deployments, come back here and just forget what happened. So it was definitely a little bit of a different culture than it is today. Also, a lot of people coming back understand the consequences are not necessarily just a learning experience. The consequences can be deadly. So expectations are high.
It changes everything. I would think like the seriousness of what it's like for when you spend your time at work. And I'm sorry to take away, but I wanted to mention that like how you spend your time at work is important, and the game shouldn't be how do you bounce as soon as possible. You know what I mean? Like I got fucking guys that I work with sometimes, and the game sometimes feels like it's about how soon can you get out of here, and it's like no, like what the fuck, like no. First of all, if you take in a routine training day, it doesn't really start till 10 after PT, right? And like where I work, getting PT on your own time can become, an often occurrence. So like when you get that, so 10 o'clock you start lunch, fucking early lunch is like 11:30, come back at what, 1300? And then what? Early day 14, like 1500.
100, like,
Jeez, man. Let's just say 1500. And it's like, how much can you really accomplish there for like an average troop? Because a lot of things we're doing, like tangible skills, require setup, preparation, require execution, require repetition. Sometimes you fuck up, require feedback, require the process to observe, rest appropriately, and then tear down, maintenance shit. Maybe you can get away with some stuff, cutting corners and backloading later, but how much can you get done if you're just, in the routine habit of just trying to balance at 1500? And it's like, no. Like, we gotta, like, change this up here. Like, we gotta, like, spend quality time. And now it's hard, though. It's hard because you got personal lives, right? You're a parent, or you're really dedicated to a bunch of other responsibilities. And senior ranking, it'll become natural, I guess, with rank. Like, the more senior you are, maybe you have these other extra responsibilities. And then just naturally for a private or the CO, you have a kid or you have a wife or whatever, these other responsibilities. So I don't know. It's a fine line to balance, man. Cause like there is a balance in there, and it's important, but yeah, the culture is certainly different now. But going back to your story, like this is you're 27 years old. You're around veteran group of people. Like most of the people that are working in this building have rotated to Afghanistan once, I would imagine at this point, right? I'm like, wow, that's incredible. That's so different. Like that's so different. But Mario, like now you're getting into workup training. You're being told you're rotating to Afghanistan. So like, what's happening now? Like, what's your job?
hell, as a platoon signaler, right? My job is really learning everything with the radios, making sure all the radios work,
Right.
making sure I understand the comms procedure, making sure I understand the higher-ups intents, all the language responsibilities, and just making sure I can battle track everything on the net so I can inform a platoon commander or anybody else in a platoon what's happening. So my job is not just receiving information, but also passing information up to higher.
Right.
Me, a platoon commander, each had a radio. So one of them is watching higher means, one of them is watching platoon means. So platoon commander would watch platoon means so he can talk to his section commanders and make a tactical decision on the ground quickly, while I would be actually reporting and getting information from the company, passing up what the platoon is doing right now,
Right.
and receiving information on the task platoon is about to achieve.
So it's very busy, like listening to the net and relaying information and a lot of procedures to follow and stuff like that.
It is, but in my opinion, that was very beneficial to me.
Mhm.
It's a brand new private. I mean, a lot of privates, what do we put them? A rifleman, a C9 gunner, machine gunner. They get a little left to right of work. They do what they told.
Yeah.
I was in a world where I had to listen to much higher conversations. So somebody who just finished off basic infantry training now is listening to conversations with the majors and captains talking about
Right.
something that's developed over years, and I am 6 months in, 1 year in, and I'm listening to this conversation. I got a little bit of a benefit of learning what's happening on a higher level a lot sooner than a lot of people will.
The way I think it's described, or it should be described, as tactical literacy. Like, the idea of like, understanding tactics, becoming a tactician, it's its own art and respect, where there's vocabulary involved, right? There's like writing systems involved, there's procedures involved, there's understanding why things are happening, like a philosophy to it. Fuck, there's a culture, you know what I mean, towards it too, you could argue. And I don't want to get in the weeds of it because who the fuck am I, right? But I do think that tactical literacy is something that needs to be developed. And if you're not about it, like you'll fall behind. And it's hard for some people in key positions to take you seriously sometimes if you can't articulate or explain what your end state is when you're trying to sell an idea or trying to do something and achieve a task, right? Because like, in the back brief, you're supposed to understand what the intention is and what like the end state would look like, right? Like, and how you're going to go about it. And so like, fundamentally, if you understand that process, like, I'm going down the rabbit hole. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Everyone's listening like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, tactical literacy. That's sick. You're a no-hook private as a signaler listening to like majors and maybe even your CO like discussing or at like a high level. battalion
It was a company level at the time.
company? Sorry.
I had to understand everything the
Yeah.
company was going through. So not just for my platoon, I would also understand what's happening from the company means to the other platoons. So I got a little bit of a bigger picture
Yeah.
of how company works. As a private, to me, that feels like it set me up to an early success into where I was going to go next out.
Yeah.
So I was kind of happy to have it. Was a very responsible job, a lot of work, but after it was done, I felt like I benefited from that position.
Like you achieved something?
I
Or?
definitely achieved better understanding of what higher ups' intents are. Right, instead of watching my left and right of work, I understood what sergeants, warrants, captains are doing. So if I understand what they need done, I can do my job better to support their intent.
Do you think it advanced your development?
I don't know. I would say advanced. It was just, I think it brought me into wanting something more. So after that, I mean, we came back. Like we can just fast forward past the tour, but I finished platoon signaler, moved to the company headquarters, company 2IC signaler, and then finished that task. Went to be an OC signaler for the first three years of my career. I was just on the radio, listening to.
Now you're a hooked private?
Now I'm a hooked private, but I am just following a different officer and just still listening to the same kind of conversations. And
Wow.
kind of wanted, like I got a little bit of exposure to what's happening,
Right.
more than just at a private level, and I wanted more. So kind of.
So what year is this now?
Well, 2010 Afghanistan, 2011, 2012, basically. Yeah.
2012. Were you working Oscar still?
I was still in Oscar until I went to my basic recce patrolman course.
Okay. What was that like?
Very challenging 2 months. I would say you think you know what you're going into. I felt that I knew what I was going into until the course started and I realized how much there is to learn. It was both mentally and physically demanding course, but in my opinion, extremely important course to develop not just a soldier, but just an NCO in general. The amount of material brought onto us and the amount of explanation of how everything works given to a private, it was amazing for me. Right, I felt like I was definitely doing a lot more responsibility than a private should, but I wanted that. And I learned that there's a lot more behind the curtain that I didn't know at the time, right? Recce Platoon at the time was on the other side of the hallway in 3RCR, and he was one of those people we don't really talk to. I was a brand new guy too, and, like it was a mystery. It was kind of like a behind the curtain veil thing, not knowing anything about him. I hear constant stuff. Once I got on the course and I got to see how much more there is and surprised myself actually seeing that I can actually do something like that.
So like, was this something that was on your radar from when you first got to the battalion? Like, I'm sure.
Not at all.
No?
Not at all. So my goal was just to deploy. I did not have any ambitions to do anything special.
Yeah.
My ambition was to originally go back to Balkans, but then that kind of didn't work out, go to Afghanistan, and I got my goal met,
right,
going to Afghanistan. And then post Afghanistan, it was like, okay, what's next?
So what was it? Like you got your goal, you deployed to Afghanistan. Did you think about doing a career in the military for a long time?
Yes. I had intention to do it. I wasn't sure how I'm going to feel after that.
Right.
But after coming back, I pretty much confirmed to myself that this is what I want to do for the rest of my career. Yeah.
Really? And was it because of the nature of your deployment?
I would say it's multiple factors. One, the nature of deployment. I mean, for somebody who says that, he's a brand new private, shows up, and I finished that tour as a private. So relatively early to deploy, it brought me something that this isn't just, training. This is something real. And if I train hard, I get to earn my spot to deploy and I get to actually do the real things that matter.
Wow.
And for someone, after 2 years to actually have that deployment where things really mattered, it brought me to do it again. But after coming back from that tour and then doing a similar job for the 3 years, I felt there's more. Recce course opened a new door. And that's the first time I started feeling like I want to do more. I want to do more. I want to be more.
Wow. Yep. That's amazing. So like when you did that course, did you what happened then? Like, did you gain a position working with the Recce Platoon? Because for anybody listening that doesn't know, doing the course doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in the organization, like the platoon or snipers as well, right? The same way. If you do your qualification, doesn't necessarily mean you get a spot on the platoon.
Yeah, that's correct. So
Right. I'm jumping ahead here, but
that's correct. We do the course, people finish the course and they're qualified to do that.
right.
And there's only so many spots in the platoons, so they usually like to handpick people they feel are deserving and have capability to do the job in the platoon, but also progress further in that role.
Yeah.
I was one of the lucky guys who actually got picked up. So end of a course, I was told that I'm moving to Recce Platoon. And that's where my Oscar company adventure for the 3 years kind of ended. So in 2012, finishing the course, I moved over to Quebec company, Recce Platoon. And I mean, at the time, I just got promoted corporal, but I felt like a new guy again, right? The whole new world, new platoon, new roles, new everything, very foreign to me, new people. And it felt like back being in a new thing. But this time, it was something that was more. And I liked it.
So what's going on now? Like you guys are told Afghanistan's done?
Afghanistan was lasting till 2014, so it wasn't done at the time yet, but Afghanistan deployments in South, the combat, like the battle group deployments were done in 2011. So it was pretty much dying out, and there was nothing on the horizon then. So we reached that period where we weren't quite sure where this is going to go next. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I just wanted to stay in and progress in my career and see what ends up happening later. And ended up in Recce Platoon. I wasn't bored because it was something new. It was something I had to learn again. It was a lot more like you think.
Can you explain like what in particular?
Well, the course teaches very basics and stuff. Any course in the military will teach you basic stuff. If you end up being in that role, you're going to learn that there's a lot more, right? And going to Recce Platoon, I mean, I was a quiet guy at the time too because I was new and just want to do my job, just make it through the day, like I said before. Recce course teaches you a lot, but then you end up going to Recce Platoon and you realize the mentality over there is different. Expectations are a lot higher. You have a lot more responsibility because...
How would you explain that? Like, what do you mean by mentality and expectations?
Mentality, it's not a company size element, it's a platoon size element. And when we deploy in like much smaller elements too, like 4 or 8 man teams. So cohesion between the people.
But that it's a capability that's treated like a company, right? In terms of it
supports the company. So like you can deploy a Recce section to support
seniority in a way, you know what I mean?
A little bit.
It's combat support, right? So combat support's always
it enables the company to do its job. So basically, because it's a small group of people, fitting in is a lot more important, I would say. When you have 40 people, you can kind of mask somebody.
Right, instead of 120 or whatever.
You can pick up somebody's weight. When you're working in a team of 4, there's not much weight to pick up because you are 25% of that, right? So you have a lot of responsibilities. And rank at that point is not necessarily reflecting your responsibilities. For example, a corporal in Recce Platoon might be tasked to lead a firebase element from a company into its position before the H hour, which is the attack hour of the time that the attack starts. You as a corporal have responsibility to enable that attack, or making a mistake, you can completely ruin that attack because if you guide them in the wrong position, miss your timing, or take a route where you expose them before they even reach their position, you as a corporal just ruined the entire company mission. So that is something that weighs on your shoulders. So normal corporal in a platoon in a rifle company probably wouldn't do something like that. But in Recce Platoon, you have these responsibilities where you are now briefing an OC, right, the company commander, about where you're going to place your company commander.
So I describe that as like the significance of your impact is high. It's very high. And that is a rewarding thing for some people, you know, and I argue that is something that's good. Having a bigger impact, especially in the military. It's a big organization. You're always working with a lot of people. So I don't want to say you want to stand out because that counters the idea of quiet professional, but I just want to say that, like, obviously, like, you want to be feeling like you're doing something significant where you work, and being in a position where you have a lot of effects, right? And high impact effects. fuck, man, like you feel good, you usually get treated a bit better, like because you're more valuable. Like if you only have a handful of people that do these certain high impact roles, it's like, well, you also want to do your best to have continuity. So that would mean you'd want to consider like taking care of these people, keeping them longer, whatever the fuck. Right? I'm going off my fucking horse here again, but I'm sorry. Mario, so like, yo, you do your recce course, you're in recce platoon, right? You're loving it now. So what's going on? What you thinking about doing next? You've been there for how long now?
Well, I've been in Recce for 3 years.
So you're
But
3 years in
starting
recce platoon now?
yeah, so starting in Recce, obviously brand new world. First year was just a lot of learning for me. Again,
Yeah.
quiet guy just trying to soak in all the knowledge. A
Yeah.
lot of people around me, very knowledgeable, very skilled people. Again, people who have deployed to before me or
Right.
who is with me, but
To Afghanistan as a recce platoon. That's fucking great.
so
Yeah.
I had a lot of experience working around me, right? So I felt a little bit blessed, a little bit lucky to have people like that around me, who had that experience and who were willing to pass that experience to the younger generation at the time. And again, I felt interest because it was something new, it was something fresh, it was a change. And seeing that change, I'm like, okay, how can I get that into me? How can I become one of those people? So I have to learn a lot. So had a great section commander again. I had a great group of people around me and just taking it day by day. First year was good, learning a lot of experience. And then 2012, 2013, and then 2014, I was told.
You're corporal?
Corporal, yeah, the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yo, Mario, didn't your brother join too?
That's much later, yes.
That was later?
That was later.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can come to that too. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was in for a little bit.
Sorry.
And then, so working in Recce Platoon, deployed to good old Wainwright with Recce Platoon, and got to really see, like the importance of Recce Platoon in a battalion context.
2014?
2014.
Yeah, I was there too, yo.
Yeah, so
Nice.
definitely challenging time,
Yeah.
but rewarding in a way that a lot of lessons learned, not just at a high level, but even a personal level. Like things that I've noticed that I could have done differently, done better, and took it to heart. And looking back, like, okay, I've learned from that. So it was hard, but good times. Again, I think it was good times just because of people around there.
Were you thinking about doing ARP and like going further in this platoon?
Not at the time. Actually, I already got my interest into a sniper platoon at the time, actually.
Like right away?
Not right away, no.
So what was it?
I was only like...
Because you guys are in the same lines, right?
No,
right?
Not at the time. So right now we're the same lines. At the time, 2-year-olds and I had their own lines, right? So that's back in the day when 3Rs didn't have all these other platoons, right? There was no assault pioneers, more...
Right.
All this stuff that we have now. Like,
who moved? Who moved?
I believe the snipers moved to Recce.
Oh, snipers moved to Recce.
If I am not mistaken. Don't quote me on that.
Oh, shit. Okay.
But, so we had our own lines in Recce and the snipers had their own. But we often work together, right?
Okay.
Because
yeah.
Recce section would maybe have a little snipers go with us too. And again, I'm just taking step by step. I'm not one of those people who was like, I want to do this in the end. I want to make it through the day. But then you get exposed to something new and you see it. And that was, again, the new thing for me. I get to see these 4 dudes show up and, they have these better rifles, better gear. And it's like, tell me about yourself and tell me what you do. And it was like, that brought me into it. It's like, well, I mean, I never thought about Recce, but here I am. So.
Yo, is Sniper and Recce's like separate? Like, you guys hang out separately? Or like, you know what I mean? Like,
they're separate platoons. They do separate things, but... they tend to train together, work together sometimes. And back in the day, too, we've done a lot of exercises where we would deploy Recce with a sniper det. And we actually had a deployment like that into Eastern Europe where there was a platoon of mixed Recce and snipers, too.
And guys go from Recce to snipers?
Yes. So Recce basic reconnaissance course is a prerequisite to go on a sniper course. So you have to finish a reconnaissance course. And more often than not, it ends up happening that people who go to Recce platoon spend a little time in Recce platoon are the ones who are eyed to do that next step because they've not just finished the course, they proved their worth by being in the platoon and learning a lot more.
Right.
Yeah, so
it shows you as like how do I want to say this? Like you have an understanding of not like prerequisite, but you have an understanding of the capability of somebody. Like sometimes when I look at what patches should represent, or when I look at least the Recce Platoon patch to be in particular, it's like that should mean to someone when you see it that that person is you can count on them, right? They're dedicated, right? And that's the biggest part, fundamentally speaking, is their level of dedication. Like they're willing to go all the way, right? And so when you consider that, then everything else comes together. Fitness, competency, professional competency, all that kind of aspects as well come together. But accountable, they're dedicated, right? And then when you're picking like who's going to be a candidate on this very hard course that has a significant pass fail rate, it's like, well, who do we let on this course that has probably a better highest percentage of success and who demonstrates qualities, characteristics, personality traits of who is someone ideally would benefit in our program, right? I would argue, would that be an appropriate way of putting it?
I would say so.
Okay. I'm sorry, yo. I'm talking out of my ass, yo. I've been in the army for a long enough time. I have friends who do things, and I kind of try to understand like, how do I explain to the regular people like me, like what you guys do, you know? But Mario, yo, thanks for letting me come to Cyprus that one time. I'm like, yo, am I allowed back here? You're like, yeah, fuck yeah, come with me. I'm like, yo, thanks. So what's going on, man? So did you have to tell your boss you want to go snipers, or like what happened?
So we always do our annual kind of like just interviews,
Yeah.
filling the sheets of what we aspire to do the next year, like a short-term, long-term kind of thing. So sniper course, after seeing them, it was on my radar. So yeah, that was one of the things I put up. And then I was told that I'm being eyed for the next course.
Okay, you're being eyed.
So
Okay.
2014, when we were in Wainwright, my section commander at the time was preparing me in the same time during that time for that upcoming course, because I did the course pretty much right after the Wainwright, right? We did a pre-course, summer leave, and then the course starts.
How did you prepare? How did you prepare to be a candidate on sniper? Basic sniper.
So a lot more, like the biggest one, I guess, would be a cam and concealment thing and learning how to stalk properly, but also ballistics and just, judging distance, detecting objects, little activities we do.
So you're doing this on your own?
Level? No, absolutely not. I did not know at the time how to do that.
Right.
But it's the course itself, the first course, the basic course, is designed to really develop primarily individual skills to be an efficient sniper. And my section commander was tapping into me and trying to get that developed in me to prepare me for the course, because he explained to me, and I'll never forget that, it's the course that's not really hard to pass. It's just really easy to fail. What it means by that is it's one of those things that it's nothing too challenging. It's just that one little mistake can get you off the course. So it's the finesse, it's the elegance of the just being particularly attentive to detail, right? So you can do everything right, and then one tiny little mistake will cost you. And typically on a stock, that's what it is, right? You can stock for 2.5 hours, and you make 1 second mistake, expose yourself too much, you get seen, and you fail the stock. And failing the stock is 99% of white people fail the course.
So can you talk about the course?
Not like, much, no.
What can you say? What can you explain? Like, what do you test it on?
Basically,
marksmanship.
Or it's plain words for anybody not in the military. It's like sneaking up to the enemy, right? So
right.
We play a lot of hide and seek. So we'll do a lot of cam concealment. So
cam concealment.
The environment, everybody knows that.
So learning the basics about that, and that's available to everybody if they're willing to try to prepare themselves for this course, right? So looking into that kind of stuff.
And then obviously the course is going to develop a little further into that. But and it comes to practice, right? A lot of it comes into the competence and confidence of an individual too,
right?
And
that's hard to train, right?
And that's hard to train. So the first time, I'm pretty sure everybody's the same as me, but the first time I was nervous as hell doing it, right?
Yeah.
And like never done it before.
You doubted yourself?
Absolutely. Like,
you want to talk about that?
I can talk about it. Yeah.
Yo, tell us what it's like, yo. When it's like, yo, you're going through some shit.
So since we're on the topic of stalking, not to talk too much about it, but it's one of those things that everybody fails, right? And it's very easy to fail, making one little mistake. So I knew in the back of my mind that I can do everything right and then make one little mistake, and that will cost me. Never done it before, so obviously I'm doing my best I can, and obviously I get seen, I get busted. So it's one of those things that sometimes you're gonna succeed, sometimes you're gonna fail, but you will fail. Everybody will fail. And the course itself is in a way designed to learn through those mistakes, and you are expected to fail, and you're gonna fail a lot of things in a course.
Because you learn a lot when you do, right?
Exactly.
The feedback concept and
it becomes really more of a mental game.
right.
A lot of emotional roller coaster happening throughout that course where, you do something and you have a great day, a great 2 days, and you feel on a high. And then the next 2 days, you just fail both things and you feel really low, and it just keeps going up and down and up. So because it's so unreliable a lot of times, you kind of start having doubts like, do I really have it? But then looking at everybody else to the left and right of you, you realize they're all into the same thing. So you kind of like snap out of it and think like, it's not just me, it's everybody. This is what everybody goes through. So you kind of like just shake it off, pick up and refocus, and like I'll get there.
Yeah.
And so some people it doesn't work out. For a lot of people it does, and I was lucky enough that for me it did work out.
And that's an important part of growth, to go through that, where like you go through these positions of doubt and you're just like, fuck, man. Like you go through these highs and lows and this uncertainty. I think that's a special element of growing up and just getting better at leading people too. Cause like, I'll tell you this, like if you can pick and choose what you want to do, it's hard to want to not pick the easy things. You know what I mean? And it's difficult to want to put yourself in a position you got to do a lot of work. There's a lot of energy that goes into it. When you're dealing with people, fuck, man, if you want to be good at dealing with people, you got to put a lot of energy into it. I know a lot of people at work that are like, good at dealing with people, and some people who are not so good at dealing with people, right?
It's any work.
It's anywhere, really, I just work in an environment where like, we just do a lot of like interesting things outside. And so, it's very interesting to hear like somebody going through what you're doing because, the elements themselves are pretty difficult. And then applying the skills that you're learning and qualified to do now, like whether you're in reconnaissance platoon, sniper platoon, and like you guys go through an interesting experience of tactical literacy, right? In the cold, like when you're wet, you know what I mean? When you're tired.
Life, yeah.
Nighttime. So you gotta want to do that stuff, right? One of the things I thought about, I don't know if you thought about it, was like your reason why. Was that ever a thing for you? Like, why do you want to do this?
Well, yeah, like I said, like I never thought I would be where I am today.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite surprised that I am where I am today, but here I am.
Yeah.
So anytime I got this new thing, I got an ambition to do it, right? And then when I'm doing it, it's like, why, right? I think
when you're doing it,
while I'm doing it, and then after you finish, like, why did I put myself through that?
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of times it comes to a personal thing. So like you're challenging yourself and you're seeing how much you can push yourself until you reach that limit, right?
Yeah.
Have I reached my maximum? Is this as far as I can go? Is this as much as I can offer to the battalion, right? And you start realizing there's more I can do. I just have to be willing to do it. And, I never thought I'd be in recce. I never thought I'd be doing any of that stuff. I just wanted to be a regular dude, regular soldier, right? Then start realizing there's more that can be done.
Yeah.
Test myself and, okay, I can offer more. I'm going to do more.
Yeah.
Then you realize, is this all I can do? Let me offer more. And you test yourself. And I think kind of like personal reward is that you start realizing that you can do more than you thought you could at the time. 15 years ago, you would tell me where I am today. I would tell you are right out of your mind.
Yeah. I feel the same way, man. I feel the same way.
There's no way this guy would do anything like this, right? And but here we are. And I don't know how I got here, but I'm here. Another one too is you start realizing that the more you do, you can't affect everybody, but there's always those people who are kind of similar drive, similar interest to better themselves and to chase that more, right? To wanting to be more, to do more. And when they see you do it and you're just one of them, and then you go and take that leap and you do it and they see this guy had done it, why can't I do it? And then they come to talk to you and you feel that reward of you are now influence, you are now an inspiration to someone behind you who maybe had a doubt to himself, but seeing you do it, he's now thinking, if he can do it, why can't I do it? Why is he better than me? Because I'm not better than anybody else. I'm just willing to give it a chance. And a lot of times people just need that reassurance that giving it a chance sometimes will work out.
I'll never forget the story of my buddy. He did a task A with like JTF2. And this guy's like, yo, one of the assaulters comes up to his buddy or some shit. And he's just like, you know what the difference is between me and you? He's like, one of us showed up for selection. And it's true. It's true. By principle, it's true. Right? You can't get the results if you don't do the thing. Right? And so how well you do is a whole nother thing. But, you know, like if you don't put yourself in that position, right, you'll never know.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm speaking from a guy who's never done recce or sniper, but I got to do selection twice. Learned a lot, and I really resonate with what you're saying, right? With the idea of like doubting yourself, going through these highs and lows, finding out how capable you are. It's so important, right? For a young person, it's so important. And like, if you can experience that sooner than later, that's amazing. But once you experience that, it can change your life a lot, right? And especially like how you perceive yourself. You feel fucking confident. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully you have humility. You know what I mean? You're humble. Sometimes, depending on what you do for a living, keeps you humble, or should, keep you humble. And having good friends and stuff. But Mario, back to you, man. So you go through basic sniper. You finish this program. You're guaranteed a spot, or you're told you have a position in sniper platoon.
So the course ends in October.
Right.
14th.
How long is this?
Course itself?
Yeah.
It was 10 weeks.
10 weeks.
10 weeks.
Okay.
Like it will vary here and there, but not to talk too much about it. But we do have a pre-course, which is kind of like a mini version of a course where we just expose them to certain elements of what the course is going to do.
How long?
Prepare them.
A week?
2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks? Okay.
And then...
Highly recommend, like, get on a pre-course.
It's a must. It's a must.
Oh, it's a pre-requirement. You need to go.
Both that you need to go and both that you want to go.
Right.
Because that will teach you.
Very valuable experience.
Of course, it's so busy that, missing a day is missing a lot. And that element of preparing students prior to the course is definitely increasing the rate of success. And I think it's integral part of the course. It's not treated like a course, but it's kind of like a part of a course where one, at a time, we had more candidates than spots available in the course. So it serves like a vetting system too, where we can see who performs well on a pre-course, who has a better chance of making it through the course. Because in the end, it's all about the output. It's all about, the course itself with no results is not a useful course. There's no return. So every time we run something in the military, we want to see a product of that. We want to see something that not just that we ran course through, we need to employ that person. Can he do this? So the pre-course kind of vets through that, and we notice who actually has a better rate of success, who is actually more inclined to do this job, and who's got just natural skills into excelling in that environment. And then we do the course.
Mm-hmm.
So finish the course in October, and then still in recce platoon, gonna go to snipers next year. But the second deployment of my career is coming up. So in January, we deployed to Eastern Europe under op reassurance.
What year is this?
2015 January. Yeah. So that was like one of those new deployments that kicked off in 2014.
Who are you working with at this point?
So I was still in recce, but this was a recce/sniper deployment kind of thing where we just went over to Eastern Europe and under op reassurance. And it was just a platoon size element between the different company elements deploying from 3RCR. So we took over in January for 4 months. And that was an interesting experience.
What'd you do?
So a lot of training with the host nation and the different nations too. And a lot of learning what they do and a lot of, cross-pollinating knowledge between us and them, and doing all kinds of activities where...
Is it Poland?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Doing all kinds of activities where, we never thought about doing, but like seeing them do it, it's kind of like, turns on the light bulb. It's like, why don't...
Like what? Like what?
Like a lot of urban warfare, for example, they had a lot of force thing, and we haven't done as much of it. So like, why don't we do that?
As a reconnaissance platoon, you mean?
Yes.
Or just in general?
They do their reconnaissance platoon too, right? So, like we don't we didn't do it as much. But
Because there's TTPs, right? There's TTPs associated to all these environments, right? And yeah, I get
they
it.
train a lot for
Yeah.
it, but like they've done a lot of force on force over there, which
Right.
I think is very valuable because it not just shows you an actual breakdown of how things go and actually see the results of your own individual and at that in a section level SOPs and how you execute that mission, but also teaches you a valuable lesson because you don't want to get hit by anything, right? So noticing where you get hit is exposes your weak elements, right? The weak spots that you're exploiting your elbow too much, a knee too much, maybe your foot is too much. Getting that feeling of getting hit into that is going to identify your delta deficiency, right? And then you can address that, and hopefully next time you can not repeat the same mistake.
It's like the fine details.
Yeah, the fine details, right? So we deployed there, and it was one of those deployments where I think the higher value was more for higher ups than us, as in it was a very like political scene was there, and it was more on like a strategic level decisions, where it comes down to our level. It was more like just trying to better ourselves and find an opportunity how make this deployment useful for us to come back from and bring up some lessons learned and knowledge from the foreign nations, including the host nation. So it was
Who are you most impressed with?
Well, Polish surprised me. I'm not gonna lie. They were definitely a lot better than I think most, if not all, was expected.
Really?
Yeah, and I think because of...
Why is that?
Again, I don't really know, but I can assume is that they took the threat seriously from their east.
Like they're invested in why we need to take this seriously. Yeah.
Why to take it seriously? Because, I mean, there's a border there, and you took it 2015, and that's a year after the Crimea happened. So I think they kind of like started realizing that we need to take this seriously, and they started investing more in that. And we've seen it now. Like, it's not that secret how much Poland has developed since 2014 up until where they are today, right? And that's a much higher conversation than you and I can have, but it's obvious to everybody that they've definitely improved their military.
So, like, Mario, you get back from reassurance?
Yes.
Wow, this is reassurance back, like, first RCR rotation?
It was, yeah, so it was a 3 RCR was the
3 RCR.
So 2 companies went.
Yeah.
And then we went as a platoon only, and then another company replaced us.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
4 different deployments in a year.
Wow.
3 RCR, yeah.
For a whole year, you guys were just going through.
Yeah, it was a 3 to 4 months kind of.
Okay. So this is your first deployment since 110?
110, yeah.
How did it feel like being on deployment again?
That was actually...
Because this is different.
It was different, but it was also very unique to me because it was different now. It's not a deployment as in what the first deployment was, right? It was a very different nature of deployment where you're there really for deterring force rather than actual combat.
Are you corporal?
Corporal at the time still, yeah. So again, it's a strategic level deployment more than... a corporal.
Right.
Like for me, it was more like, what can I do? What can I learn from these people that can better me when I come back? And if there's anything they need to know from us, what can I provide them? Now, as a corporal, I'm still a corporal. I'm still learning a lot. I'm figuring things out. I just finished my course.
Right.
But
there's
has
like
something to say.
There's like this, what's the term for it, man? Like, when you guys get together,
yeah,
like you're going to exchange with one another. It's just natural to do that when 2 groups get together. Cultures, they can clash, but they can also blend in a way where you share and exchange. And it's hard not to be like, yo, we're like same, right? And like you get those moments when you're deployed, like in England, like, and we got to go and do Unifier together. Well, I mean, there's so much to this story because this is your second time doing Unifier. But in that context, multinationals and we're working with each other, and you see that there's a lot of commonalities. Differences too, but commonalities. And it's kind of neat, but it's also interesting to see why you do it differently. And it's like, is it better? And it's like, why is it better? And it's like, oh, okay. And you can pick up on these things, these details, as you would say, right? That are important to being flexible, adaptive, right? And building your capability, because you take pride in that. You're like, yo, this is what I do, and this is your identity, and you can't help but feel like, yo, maybe you think about it this way, maybe you don't think about it this way, but you can't help but feel like you want to make your tribe strong, smart, healthy, whatever. And like, this is a better way to make us effective. Thus, makes us more employable or just makes us more of like a good thing.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird, but I'm sorry, I'm blabbing. But Mario, like, you come back from this deployment.
Yeah. So that deployment, the second deployment was interesting to me too, because it was Eastern Europe. And I mean, growing up,
Yeah.
and kind of like felt like, first time, felt like I'm getting a part of what I really wanted, right?
Interesting. So you're feeling this.
I'm feeling, because just people, structure, everything, just infrastructure, everything felt more like what I grew up in, right?
So is this hitting that like aspiration you had as a kid?
Yes.
You're like,
So
fuck, man, this is exactly what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to be in Eastern Europe
it wasn't
with the army.
exactly it. It wasn't exactly it, but it was.
Why? What were you thinking as a kid? What did you want to do?
Well,
Go back
when
to
when I not a kid, right? I was 25 and I joined, but
no, but as a child, did you envision that, or is this
as a
later
child, I didn't know I was
develop?
gonna move to Canada, right? As a child, I was just living through the war.
Let's backtrack. I don't think
Yep.
we've discussed that portion of your life. There's so much to talk here,
Okay.
and I'm interrupting you a lot.
No worries, no worries.
Um, there's so much to talk about your military career, but just to give everybody an understanding about your background. So, where you grew up was a war zone, the conflict area.
Pretty much.
Can you tell us about your experiences being a kid there?
Yeah, I mean, for what I can, it's 5 years. There's a lot to talk about, but 1990 to 1995 was a war, and started off, slowly, and then in 91 it was really bad, and I would say it was generally normal to get shelled. So
This is Croatia.
Croatia, yeah. So like being in the impact area, you can call it, right? The city was shelled. The front line was only 10 kilometers outside the city, and they were nailed. So like they had a good eyes on the city, and the building got hit a couple of times. Like the whole neighborhood that I lived, there was quite a few hits. And as a kid, I mean, first it's scary, but then you get used to it, and then you start getting these hobbies where, like after the shelling, you go out and start looking for the coolest, biggest shrapnel, and everybody had boxed of shrapnels. And then, the parents will be going fighting, they come back and they give you ammunition from different calibers. So like you're the coolest kid if you have the most diverse ammunition in your box, right? So collecting all this stuff kind of, I think, was big reason why I got an interest in the military, because I was surrounded by it as a child.
Yeah.
Then also, like airstrikes, learning about the blackouts, and no lights at night. Everything was just pitch black. You putting the sheets.
You're 5 years old,
No,
experiencing
it
this?
was 9 to 13.
9 to
So, like
13 years
10,
old.
10, 11 was when it was probably the worst. Yeah. So you spend a lot of time in the basements of the buildings, just because it was deemed the safest.
Those are significant years for a child. I mean, like, so formative. Like, you're going into your teenage years and you're growing up in an environment like this where there's such a high risk to your life. And this is not like what we have in this kind of country and society. This is completely very different. So it's interesting to see the idea. And it's like, with growing up in an environment like that, it's something that shapes you. And I think I see it sometimes when like we're out there going about our business and we're talking and stuff. Like, you have this level of maturity that exists, I think, because of sometimes you're able to leverage your experiences growing up. But Mario, like, did your family come straight away to Canada? Like, what happened here?
As refugees, yes.
As refugees?
Refugees.
Okay.
So it was under Canadian government program. Basically, they accept us as refugees. They fly us over here.
And Canadian soldiers served in your area where you grew up?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And not just Canadians, all the UN peacekeepers.
Right.
But yeah, Canadians for sure.
Okay.
I mean, we've all known Canadians were heavily involved in Croatia,
Yeah.
Bosnia, right? So I've definitely seen quite a few. Never thought I'd actually be one of them now, right? So step at a time. But yeah, like that kind of, I think it was a bit of a shaping of why I wanted to do this career, right? And after the war, the economy was bad too, and you just kind of learn to take what you can and do whatever you can, right? So like we didn't have as much as people here have, so little things matter, but I think a lot of people here don't realize that people take things for granted, like electricity. Electricity is a commodity, right? Sometimes you don't have a chance to have that.
So Mario, like, um, let's talk about like your career when you get into snipers. When you're in sniper program, um, were you told that you're gonna get a spot, or you go back to recce, you deployed with recce, and then you? How did you get into snipers?
So finish the course, and then deployment's coming. But then I heard I'll be going to sniper
Oh,
after the deployment. So
okay.
next posting season, like I will be moving from recce to snipers. So yeah, I was trying to pick the brain of some snipers in that because we deployed as Platoon, like I mentioned before, recce snipers, and tried to pick a brain a little bit of some guys and did a couple activities with them. But then, just another thing, like I say, there's another thing on the horizon now. It's a new thing for me too. So, right when you feel comfortable, I've been there for 3 years in recce Platoon. I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable. I'm starting to feel like, okay, I'm learning a lot. Now I can actually start developing myself in that. But then there's something new coming up. It's like, this is a new thing for me, fresh perspective, and it's kind of like another buy-in, which is what I think kept
Were
me
you
going.
thinking this way back then?
Back when I was told to go to snipers, yeah, like it was like, okay, this is a new world for me now. So like, it's another new platoon, another new group of people are going to be working with, and another new skill set that, the course teaches you basics on, but then being in the actual environment, you actually get to hone those skills to the level desired.
So what year is this now?
So 2015, right?
20.
So after deployment, I move over and spend some time there, and same thing, just keeping really quiet, trying to learn whatever I can. Again, a really good, knowledgeable group of guys in that platoon at the time, right? Had a great section commander too, or I could call it the dead commander. I guess 4 of us. He's no longer in, but definitely a very knowledgeable guy that tried to teach as much as he can, and the same camaraderie and kind of like a mentality clicked with everybody. So it was really tight community, and I felt more at home. And you feel that just because it's a smaller group, you feel like you're more important. You feel like you have a lot more responsibility. Therefore, you bring in a lot more. So you feel that you have a purpose in here. It doesn't disappear with the quantity of people around you. Everything you do has a big effect, whether positive or negative.
Mm-hmm. You see that a lot more when you work in small teams,
Absolutely.
right? So small teams, bigger impact, and yeah, and it makes you feel like even though you were like a low rank, that you have such a role or such a significant role, where the rank thing kind of it fades out, it plateaus, right? And I experienced that when you work with like certain branches of service, like Air Force, where like the rank kind of plateaus out, but not necessarily for the same reasons. They have their own reasons of going about it, culturally speaking, too. But that's amazing. And I do recommend that for like anybody who's new to the military, considering joining the military, or is at a point in their career where they don't know what they want to do, but they have this ambition, this gas in the tank, if you will, and want to feel like they're doing something more, and want to contribute more. And it requires a lot of maturity, responsibility, and preparation, which has a lot of sacrifices and dedication required in and in itself. It's not an easy place to work, competitive, but it's absolutely something that's going to make you feel good about what you do. And earning a place there, I think it's going to be it'll be a great meaning of success for some people for their career. So definitely for anybody listening, if you're thinking about it, you should go do it. And if you're on the fence about it, you should look into it.
You won't know unless you try.
Yeah, you won't know until you try. That's amazing. So when you work over here at Snipers, how's it going? And at what point, like, what are you up to?
A lot of training, right? It's kind of like one of those skill sets that
What do you guys do for training? You guys hit ranges?
we'll hit a lot of ranges. We'll do stalking activities, right? We'll just talk about the SOPs and do a lot of like we've done some urban stuff too, where our urban drills are going to be different than a regular platoon because of the nature of the job. So a lot of training throughout the year, and then also,
How big's your training? Do you guys all get together, or is your training always small scale?
we well, the platoon itself is pretty small to begin with, but a lot of times people are gone on courses
Right.
or taskings or deployments. So whoever's on the ground basically will go and do the activities.
It's like very rare to have everybody there.
It's quite challenging to have a whole platoon here. We also have a annual cycle of the basic sniper course where we're going to have people being tasked to be instructors on that course. So we know that takes away like about 4 months of the year is already dedicated for that. Then you add another month of planning. If your unit is tasked to run that course, now you have to do a lot of planning for that too, and booking ranges, booking training areas, vetting candidates, putting them through all the preparations, a lot of admin work. So it takes a lot of the year just to maintain the capability of the platoon and to bring new people in and people move on to the different things.
In your position right now, you can probably speak to it. And can we talk about your position that you're going to be adopting and holding? Or is it too early? Like,
it's too early.
Okay, no worries.
It, but
can we say this, though? Can we say that when it comes to the capability of what snipers is that because it's a brigade asset, that it's only run once a year and all 3 of the battalions come together to make it happen, right?
That's correct, yeah. So the basic sniper course, we make it happen in the brigade level. And then the next courses, the higher level courses for the sniper world is really CAF level, right? So all the regiments come together into a single course. So that's why it's so competitive too, because it's a very limited number of spots, and it's why we really select people, really kind of handpicking people who are deserving to go on those courses. But it's also a double-edged sword because people who have a lot of ambition, once they reach that level and they want to do more,
they don't stay for long.
A lot of time people think like there's more I want to do.
Right.
And then they end up going to Kansas or something.
It's a double-edged blade, so the ambition keeps getting fed.
It's proving people that they can do more, and then people realize
Right.
I can do more, I can do more, I can do more, I can do more, and then they hit that point where it's like, what else can I do in this battalion? I can definitely do more. We give them everything we can as a battalion, but at some point, some people...
Yeah, when you have Recce and Sniper, you pretty much reach a peak. Like, you could argue, Pathfinder too, but sure. But, like...
It is. It's
it
the
is.
hardest Green Army course.
100%. And you know what? Yeah, I shouldn't talk like it's just Pathfinder. No, fuck no. Like, you gotta throw it respect, that it deserves. But I would say that how it's established in terms of, like, a full platoon structure, and with all the advanced qualifications and basically career progression involved in it, where you do like this basic course followed by followed by your deck commander course, followed by advanced course. Can you speak to like the difference between what do you do on the deck commander course versus the basic course?
I don't want to talk too much about it.
Oh, you can't?
I mean, the term itself, deck commander course.
Like, what does that mean? Like, you're responsible for
4 people, so you're basically you can call yourself a section commander, but it's really a deck commander. You're in charge of the 4-man team.
That's a sergeant's job?
Not necessarily a master corporal or sergeant, right? So
okay.
Master corporal, you can call it a deck commander. You're in charge of a 4-man team, and the course will teach you basically how to, mission plan, practice, combat estimate. You're gonna do all this stuff, and you're gonna basically understand the higher ups intents, and then take the information given to you and shape it into your mission, and also
combat estimates.
Yeah.
Some factors analysis. Let's go.
And then your job is not just to understand like what's being asked of you, but it's also understand how you can best employ yourself and your debt to support the higher ups intent to achieve mission success. So that's one of the things.
Is a deck commander normally assigned to like a battalion commander or like a company commander?
That is both. That is normally supporting the company.
Okay.
So like you would have 4-man team supporting a company, rifle company. So that's part of the course, and the other part of it is now, like you are trained sniper. Now the commander will teach you how to teach a course. So you're learning how to properly plan and execute different activities on the course. You become a OPI, basically a SME for a certain activity that you're going to do on a basic sniper course. So those are kind of
okay. So deck commander means you have the qualification to teach everything on the sniper course.
Not necessarily.
Oh, you still need some with advance.
You do stuff, but like there's another thing that you're going to do. So I don't want to talk too much about it, but there is certain certain criteria that sometimes advanced qualified member is required to be part of that activity.
Okay, fair enough. Sure. I get you. You know, like you're here, like the sniper guys are always like, very cautious about what they talk about. So don't think like, I'm prodding. I am, because I want to look like,
Natural.
it's natural, right? Like I just want to know about your combat support capability. Advanced courses typically require us to advise, as well as facilitate, but a lot of the advising the commander role, I think, is involved in that kind of role. I'm not going to assume like I know everything about what you do, but it's important to understand that if you want to choose a role in a sniper platoon, they have the qualification course of basic sniper, deck commander, advanced sniper. And you have one person who's in charge of the whole platoon. There's no officers,
No, not in our world.
right? No, it's just NCO,
NCO.
the unit master sniper, UMS. And then each battalion has a UMS. And then we have the brigade master sniper in the RCR. And then PPCLI and the Vandus have their own and stuff.
That's true.
Right. That's awesome, man. So like you do this whole career in the sniper world, and what happens then? Like when do you get pulled out of it?
So yeah, I spent a year there, get pulled out of it to go on my leadership course, PLQ, that I finally got to go on.
Oh, PLQ.
Yes, because I was always looking at these specialty courses.
Right.
Those guys who, was not in a rush to get promoted. He was in a rush to get new.
You have like that free fall
new
stuff.
skills. So basically, what ended up happening was did my PLQ and then deployed to Op Unifier for the first time, right after that.
In Ukraine.
In Ukraine, yes.
What was that like?
Very interesting, where I got to do my kind of stuff that I don't want to talk about too much, but a lot of training in my world and being put in a position where I am definitely expected to do a lot more than I was trained for or qualified for, but it was a great learning experience for me. Basically being put in charge of something that you're, never expected to be put in charge of.
Yeah.
And, as a brand new master corporal, at the time only basic sniper, is
having that significant impact,
right? So it's like, how do I approach this? How do I do this? So it was a lot of figuring it out for myself to, not just to do my job right, but also how can I make this thing permanent, right? Because when I leave, what did I change? What remains in the country, right? How are the people that I've been working with going to take that, and what is going to happen with that? Is it going to spread? Is it going to do something? So how do I make this thing a permanent stain, right? Something that everybody benefits from. There's a lot of figuring out for me and lessons learned. Like obviously now that I'm more qualified, I can see what I can do better on it. But I think I've done a relatively decent job in teaching myself as much as teaching others and learning from the others in what we can provide for each other in that tour. And again, it was prior to the invasion, so a lot of those guys had experience, but it was at the time they called ATO, right, anti-terrorist organization, so they had a common experience too. So, I mean, since I'm already there, how can I tap into that experience of what they've been through, right? So some guys that I've been training myself, it felt more like they should be training me. They've done some pretty serious stuff too. It was good times. And then again, just the country itself felt more like home to me on a personal level. And I mean, what they're going through.
Like this is Eastern Europe. So like, is this even hitting harder than your other deployment to Poland? Like, is this giving you even a more genuine...
It's not just that it's Eastern Europe, but it's also what they're going through, right?
Right.
Geopolitical situations and, what people are going through and what's happening. Now, it was only limited to a certain area of the country at a time, but I can kind of relate to that, right? And brought up a lot of that deployment was like when I finally felt like this is what I really needed, because the original intent of why I joined up, even though it wasn't exactly what I wanted, it met that board. It met that desire that I felt like I was going back to do something in return. And I would say, even though not a combat tour, it was very, very rewarding tour.
Rewarding.
Yeah.
That's really good. That's one of the most important things, right? Is feeling like all that time spent was worth it, to feel like you did something that's meaningful. Sorry. So from that deployment experience, that's a 3RCR as well?
That's 3RCR.
Right. So you come back from this deployment, what's going on? Is this when you go to Toronto?
That's when I go to Toronto. Yeah, so that was my own personal ask. I mean, I had a wife, had one child,
Yep.
and we planned another one. So constantly being away on courses, deployments, taskings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the spouse asked if you can have a little bit of a break. So, I mean, I was always going hard.
Yeah, man.
Decided, you know what, maybe I can take a little break and see where I can go
What years is
home. So 2018, right? So
2018, yeah.
2018. So 2017, I asked for it when we were deploying, and pretty much like 2 months in the tour, I already got my answer. I got posted on Toronto.
This is pretty much you've been in for like 10 years, eh?
Yeah.
10 years. You're talking, you have 3 deployments. You
I'm
have
on my third when it came down, yeah.
Yeah. So like, wow. So within 10 years, you need 3 deployments, on these courses that you've taken, like recce, snipers, whatever other filler courses in between. Definitely keeps you away PLQ, right? ISCC or RSCC, whatever they are, keeps you away and stuff, And then now, yeah, you're at a point where like your spouse, your kid, you got to dedicate time, get that balance, which is so important. People are like, yo, you got to find the job satisfaction. Well, yo, good luck with job satisfaction when your family's telling you to fuck off, man. Right? Like, no, you got to balance that stuff. And yo, a posting to Toronto. Here we go.
So wanted to go back, both of our families are down in Kitchener, Cambridge area, right? So I'll go summer down close there so we can have family help out with the kids.
Yeah.
And I got Toronto. Didn't ask for Toronto. I just wanted summer down south. But Toronto, great,
Okay.
It was a big city. It was a big change. And at the time, wife didn't really prefer Petawawa because it was definitely much smaller than Kitchener area.
Mm-hmm.
So I go down to Toronto, and then I become this, like just a supporter or reserve unit, right? Like a transport NCO. And seems like my responsibilities have significantly shrunk.
Right. So, yeah, I hear you there.
So it felt like, I'm not going to say it, but I guess I will say it. It felt like more like I was on a break, where I wasn't as busy as I'm used to.
But maybe that was the intention.
That was the intent. So family life was very good because I was home all the time, but it started feeling like I am no longer meeting that, like, like I could do more. So it was a good break for me, to kind of like recharge and refocus on what I want to do next in my career. But I knew it was only going to be temporary because I can't do that for a long time. So go down there, start working with the reserve unit, and just like anybody else, had my prejudice about the reserve units and, like my little opinions of them. Working with them, opened my eyes and realized they are the way they are because of how they operate, right? And what is their limitations, constraints, and
yeah.
So I kind of got to understand them a lot more, and like, even though we tend to look sometimes that they don't really necessarily go on par with the reg force, it started to realize why that is. And talking to some people, I realized that a lot of those people also had a lot of potential in them.
Yeah.
Just never got realized because their prospective units just never had an opportunity to tap into that and provide training and courses required for them to fully develop into what it can be.
Yeah.
Talked to a few people about maybe switching over to reg force, and unfortunately, most of them already had careers established and families established in Toronto. But a couple guys decided to switch over. But I met some really, really great dudes down there.
Mm-hmm.
The one we both worked with, right? A lot of respect for that man. And
shout out Eugene Chosa.
Yeah,
we love you.
Yeah, we miss you.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where like you feel like you can provide a lot for that unit too, but just working with certain people, you start realizing that they can teach you a lot as well.
Yeah,
and I've learned a lot. It felt like I had a lot less responsibility, but it was back to like a new world, learning a lot new things. So like the problems we had.
But yo, Mario, what's crazy too? Like, yeah, I felt like I contributed to that unit too because it was a transport NCO at the Royal Regiment of Canada. Shout out. But I want to just say you in particular because I know you pretty well, and I would say that you are such an amazing resource for that unit because of all your experiences. You already have 3 tours by this point. One in combat, one as like platoon signaler, high impact role, right off the hop in a combat situation. So you have that experience. I'm sorry. You know, you have op reassurance, op unifier. You served a recce platoon. You served a sniper platoon in the roles. I mean, your experiences overseas of creating training. Um, and we can't get into the weeds of it, but like creating training, right, goes into a lot of nuances with administration and putting things together and facilitating skill, right, and learning experience. You bring that to the reserves, man. Fuck, dude. Like, and you're already like a pretty switched on guy when in terms of you know how to find publications, you know how to do your research, your homework. Where yo, dude, like most of the people don't. You know what I mean? Unless it's like given to them. But you can find out. You're like, yo, what are we talking about? I know where to find out about what we're talking about, you know? So you're an amazing asset for them because for them, yo, the self fucked it is, you're a force multiplier in it in itself. You're a department, that's a one man show. And that's what you can be as a transport NCO if you want to be when you take a posting to the reserves. And that's interesting. I think the point here is like you found a job where you can put your foot down on the gas pedal and you can take your foot off of it. And you're in a position where you're not expected to put the gas pedal down, but you have the flexibility and freedom to do it. And that place loved you, man, because like when I got there, they're like, yeah, Mario, we fucking love Glass. You know, he taught us this, you do this, and we did this stalking stuff with him and blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, fuck, man. Like, you know, I'm not like Mario, bro. I'm not a super soldier. You know what I mean? I'm just a dude, right?
So
But like,
everybody is.
yeah,
You're just
but yo, I used to hear all this big stuff about you, which is awesome because, you know, it's true, man. And like I got to meet you. You know, when I first showed up to 3RCI, I'm just standing. I don't know what the fuck. We were doing briefs or some bullshit, and I'm standing there, and I'm looking around, and I see you, and I see your name tag, Glasnovic, and I'm like, I know this guy. I'm like, excuse me, I don't even remember. Do you remember?
I remember.
You remember? Yo, how did it go? Do you remember how I said it?
Yeah, he just came up and it's like, hey, it's you, Mario. You Toronto? Like, yeah, and that was
like,
Mario. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both knew about each other. We just never met.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad we did, man, because we got to deploy together on Op Unifier for your second time. Yeah, United Kingdom training element. And got to teach with you. And I want to talk about that experience because that was cool, man. And like what you got to do. And I want to make sure we talk about what you got to do because it was a big part of putting together something that was going to last longer than after we were there.
Sexual kicked up again.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. That's amazing.
So,
Mario, can we talk about that? So, like, you finish your posting in Toronto, you go back to CR.
yeah, so Toronto, like I said, like I was there, you know, like I expected 3 to 4 years, go down there. And like I said, I realized there was a lot of shrinkage of responsibility. This is why I kept myself busy, right? I took other tasks because I can provide more.
Yeah.
So like I was every parade night, I would just take a bunch of guys who are going on POQ and I would just teach them. Look, you could call it an annual pre-POQ package, where I would just teach them how to teach a class, you know, like teach them anything, orders format, anything that they would do on POQ. And one, it benefited them, but two, kept me busy and kept me involved. So like you said yourself, right? You determine what you want to do. Not much responsibility, but you find something else to do to fill in the spot and make yourself useful. But I mean, only a year in, I get a call from a career manager saying that the battalion wants me back, or at least if I want to, because I just got there a year ago. So now I'm in that crossroads where, you know, the wife wanted to go down there and she didn't like that a while. But at this point, she really wants to go back because now she realized that even though I'm home all the time, there's not much of a home when you're living in a high cost of living small condo with the two kids.
Right, you live in a shoebox.
You live in a shoebox, right? Like I'm there every day, but there's not much to move around, right? And it's a lot more expensive. And she kind of missed it a while. A quiet life. Not much craziness, not much traffic.
You don't appreciate it till it's gone.
Till it's gone, exactly. So it did me a favor
that
she realized how actually really well we have it over here, how it's nice and quiet and peaceful. So I knew she wanted to go back, and she confirmed that she wanted to go back. So I told him, yes, I'm coming back. And before you know it, here I am. I'm, 2 years in, I'm already back in the 3rd Battalion. Yeah, and during that time, I did my Det Commander course, and I did my RSCC.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, like, I got promoted sergeant out of that position to come back here.
So,
and
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And then that was it. And then, taught on a course, taught on a sniper course. And the whole COVID thing, lockdown happened. And then before we even went to that tour, I ended up going to brigade and did 2 years as a brigade ops warrant, which again, very busy job. But
Mm.
right when you think you know everything, you start realizing,
So this is your first like big admin job.
big admin job.
So tell us about what's that like?
A huge eye opener, right? So
Operations.
everything.
Yeah.
So a door just opened up a little bit, and you get curiosity, and then you push the door, and you realize there's a whole other world, right? And all these questions I had from a brand new Norfolk privates all the way to a sergeant. Why are we doing this? This doesn't make any sense. Suddenly started making sense, right? You started seeing the bigger picture and start seeing why certain things are demanded from the lower ranks, from the units. And ended up being the guy in a chair that had to figure out a way to optimize unit strengths between different units in a brigade, but also meet the Army's requests, their training requirements, their operational requirements. How do we make everybody somewhat healthy in a world where we're actually starting to lose people and a lot of experience is disappearing?
Are we talking about like retention and recruiting?
Recruiting, right? So for me, I've deployed 3 times at a time, but I never knew what happens before and after, right? So now I'm in this chair where I get to be one of the guys who had to track and plan and like organize everything for the units who are going out the door, and I'm that I'm the voice of the brigade, talking in the ops level, right? So I am talking to people much higher rank than me who are ops MWOs in their units, and I'm just a sergeant. So I'm learning from them and trying to fill in pretty responsible, pretty big shoes to fill in that chair, but help me understand how much more happens behind the curtains that I never got to see before. And seeing how it all works, right? Like from the moment something gets tasked down to the Army level, down to the division level, to the brigade level, going down through us all the way down to the battalion level. So I got to see a bigger picture, how it all works. Sometimes how it should work, but it doesn't. But I got to see it all. And do I know everything? Absolutely not. But I got to learn a lot more being there for 2 years. Training, operations, courses, right? Both students and the instructor side of it just started to make a lot more sense why we are the way we are, but also started to kind of like poke into my kind of like opinions of why are we doing this too, right? Like why can't we do better at this? And I mean, answers to that is probably going to be lying a lot higher than you and me.
Yeah, I never got to work on brigade operations. I got to do ops as the operation sergeant on my impact tour. But it wasn't as big of a formation as like a brigade is, right? Like we had a lot of different outstations and stuff, and I was only responsible for the camp, so I wasn't like the task force ops sergeant. But I enjoyed the job because like you feel like you're involved in an impactful role, like you're very much involved in like coordinating and executing, right? You get these like missions, these plans, you understand like where it's coming from. You kind of get like an idea, a better understanding of why it's happening than like the guy on the ground does, typically speaking. Um, and I loved having just like that role where I'm interfacing with higher ups, being able to organize things, make things happen. That felt good for me. Um, being in that job, did you want to get back to the RCR? Were you happy? Like,
So the first year I was there, it was a lot of learning experience for me, right? A whole new thing. I felt like I was in over my head for a beginning and, trying to learn as much as I can before. I mean, the world doesn't wait for you to learn, right?
yeah,
It's happening. As soon as I got in the chair, things are happening. I have to react. I have to do something. And it feels like you have all these loose ends of the ropes just waving in the wind, and you're the one who has to put them all together, tie them in efficient knots. Well, how do I do that if I don't know how to tie the knots? I had to learn real quick how to do that. So the first year was learning a lot. Once I got comfortable, I started feeling good at it on the second year because I started realizing I can make some changes and, I can advise and change certain things the way the brigade works. And that was kind of like self-reassuring and also rewarding for me that
yeah,
there's a little bit of a footprint of my own left in the brigade,
yeah.
right? And spending 2 years there, just looking at that, and it still exists over there, that's a reward for me to spend 2 years there. So the second year was more of now I know how things work.
And you worked with Colonel Reeves in that job, or what?
No. I mean, he's current.
He's currently the brigade commander, right?
I came here in the 2023.
Right.
So, yeah.
He was CO though when
He was
you deployed on
he was
Unifier the
he
first
was
time.
he was a 3RCR CO, and he was a Unifier task force commander that I used to work with over there.
I got to interview him too before, and he had a really good experience on that deployment as well. I remember you guys had a story and stuff, but that's awesome. So Mario, man, like, what year is it that you're back at 3RCR?
So 2023, right? So 2023, my 2 years in a brigade end. I go back to 3rd Battalion, back to my world, teach another course like that. And then Unifiers on the radar. So now being the guy who got to, like facilitate a lot of deployments and making sure that people are good to go to get out the door. Now I'm in a unit that goes out the door. So I kind of felt like I need to go on this one. And I asked to go on this deployment. And I mean, higher-ups had a different intent for me. And I kind of really needed that deployment, kind of like have a check in a box for me. So I turned down offers provided to me by the RSM and requested that I get deployed on the upcoming Unifier, which ended up happening. So I moved over to Oscar Company again. So first tour, last tour, back to Oscar Company. And then before you know it, I am over there. And that's how then I got to...
First tour and last for Oscar Company?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say last for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's
amazing.
And that going. And then we've at this point known each other, but now we actually got to work together too.
Yeah. That was amazing because when I was over there, even before I got over there, but asking to be employed with the training team so I could teach was something that was like an ambition of mine once I knew from the hop that I was going to deploy. I was told that I had to do the position for career purposes, but they would keep me administratively in my job where I can go teach as well. And then being told, I kind of had some choice in it. And I'm like, listen, sir, like I'm capable of doing this. I've taught a lot of this. Where do you want to use me? He's like, go to the instructor course. I'm like, all right, sick. And, when I went over, I'll be working with you. Like that was an amazing opportunity. Like we got to teach the basic training instructor course, which is essentially like a NATO-ized version of PLQ. But ours was Canadian led. And I'm doing a lot of talking here, but Mario, you're a big part of putting that together, right? Do you want to just talk about some context with like how it was for you?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. So basically here I am. I go over there, and then right at the start, I'm told like, yeah, you're gonna do this program. Starts in a few days, really, right? It's a big course. That the aim of the course was really to develop the nation to have their own instructors. So we were over there training basic courses. The intent was to have them train their own courses in their own country themselves. So, people who had experience being in the front line, how do we transfer that experience to the upcoming new recruits? Just because you know something is not enough. It's only half of the formula. The other half of the formula is knowing how to effectively transfer that knowledge to another head, which also means you need to understand how the other head thinks. So that's what makes a good instructor, right? And the program given to me was to develop the instructor course, where we're going to take this small group of guys and make instructors out of them. They can go back and start teaching their own troops at a NATO level quality and what NATO expects of the nation to do, right? Looking in the future, they have an aspiration to become a part of NATO, and we already see them training with NATO in a lot of different countries. Well, interoperability and compatibility are really big words here. So how do we make sure that a nation that has done something significantly different than NATO suddenly clicks with the rest of NATO and can work together interchangeably? So
it's an important concept.
It was a lot for me to figure out. And there was not much material given. There was not much anything really given. So the first course that we ran, it was more like, use terminology, winging it, just trying to meet the POs, the objectives that the British Interflex required from the course. So it's kind of like being told, this is what I want you to do, but never being explained taking the road to get there, right? How do I make this guy a basic training instructor? Like, what is the criteria? What is the schedule looking like? What is the pass or fail criteria? All of these things that we had to figure out on our own.
Were you given a timeline? You're like, yo, you got 35 days?
Yeah, we had 35
Okay,
days.
so you're given like a timeline, which is an important thing, right? Because now you have like a box. Okay, I can do this much, and like the ceiling or whatever. You could make this analogy, all sorts of great things, but the logistics of what do you have? What can you use? Oh, you have a vehicle, 2 vehicles, whatever. Okay, do I have any support staff? Because that makes a difference. All right, cool. Where do I get this? Where do I get that? I need this. I need that. Because you're trying to figure out like, all right, these are the performance objectives I need to achieve. Like the arcs are like this right now. And the more narrow you can get it down to in this concept is like the more of a refined product you produce. And it was tough, man. Like you're working with a crowd where you don't actually have authority over, because that was the relationship dynamic between us and our Ukrainian students, right? Or candidates was like, I'm not in the position of authority over you. I'm in a position that normally would have that, but because of the dynamics and circumstances of this operation, like, no, like, it's just a mutual respect thing right now. And what makes it hard for a junior person is like not having experience with teaching, because like you don't want to go too hard off the hop because it's an art, and like you can really fuck it up if you're a junior person. Mind you, the fuck ups are what help really make you learn. But on our course, you required like a more mature kind of instructor, because you're dealing with people who, one, have a lot of experience applying a lot of the concepts you're here to teach and in fact refine, right? Because we're working with an organization that doesn't have that concept of standardized training, because you work in this brigade. You're all border guards, you're all National Guard, police, whatever, but you guys have different TTPs, doctrines, depending on what brigade, what part of the country you're from, because you might have some different complexities and dynamics of your... Anyways, I'm getting in the weeds of it, but yeah, having that concept of maturity. And I'm talking a lot, but Mario, you know what really resonated with me when we taught this course together? Was I wanted them to care. So what did I say to them? I'm like, listen, man, like, yo, I could teach anybody to be a fucking instructor. I could teach a monkey how to be an instructor. It's hard to teach or build a good instructor, because a good instructor is a force multiplier. And I always did my lesson, because I think I had literally one of the first lessons with them, and it had to do with like the theory or the principles of teaching. And my whole why was like, man, you can put a few good instructors in a village of 100 farmers, and in a short amount of time, you'll have a village of 100 fighters, resistance fighters. And that is an asset to your organization, especially when you're going through a high attrition rate. But I digress. Mario, like, how did you find that experience, man, with having to put together this course?
So challenging. So, like, going back to having limited resources, right? Like, we were kind of like left on our own a lot. It was the first program run by Canadians, so we weren't quite sure what we're really going to require. So the first course is really like a trial course where I took a lot of notes of what worked and what didn't work. And focusing on the course itself, I built a very detailed schedule on it. And then once that was finished on the subsequent courses, just started implementing more like, how do I make it more efficient? Do I translate this? How do I assess them? How do I make better use of time that I have? But also in the same time, the uniqueness of this situation was that, like you mentioned yourself, we don't have authority over them. So you can approach the students the way we would approach them over here. Yes, they don't have a choice to be there, but they have a choice whether or not they want to listen to you. Because
Right.
if they not listen to you, they can be on their phone. There's really not much you can do about that. So how do you approach that, right? So this is where a buying and being a salesman comes in. You cannot tell the guy that he needs to listen to you or there'll be consequences, because what are the consequences, right? So how do you plant that seed into the person's mind that what you have is beneficial to him, but he doesn't believe that? And the reason they don't believe that is because, looking from their perspective, right, most of these guys come back from the front line. They'll be fighting for 2 years, and now they come to talk to you, and you're going to teach them how to fight that war where you have zero experience fighting that war. they have 2 years, and a lot of times more than 2 years because the war really started in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
How do
Or
you make
applying your TTPs that aren't relevant in their battle
Exactly. So
space.
how do you make that person believe that spending time with you is going to benefit him? And that was very challenging, right? I had a little bit of in because, again, coming from the region I'm from and having a childhood I had, very similar to what they're going through. So I think they felt more like I can understand them better.
Yeah.
I think myself too that I can understand them better because I was one of them at the time, right? Or I was one of their children at the time, you can call it. So what they were going through was what my father would be going through when the war in the 90s was happening back in my country. So I had a little run in with them too, and I think that helped out a lot because they trusted me, right? They trusted, like, this guy understands what I'm going through because he's grown up in the same environment. So I needed to leverage that. And how do I do that, right? So I can't just tell him that I'm here to teach you something. So we had to find that working relationship where we make this course mutual, the benefits both of us. And it really is, right? Like I can teach him how to teach because they haven't done that. But they can teach us what they're going to teach.
Oh, yeah.
They have a lot of experience that we don't have. And a lot of our doctrines are now changing throughout NATO because of the new development in the current war.
How I would like to explain it is like, I wasn't there to teach them really subject matter content. Other than the subject matter being how to deliver your content. Because I'll tell you this, when I was talking to a gentleman who was serving, he retired as a major, but he ended up serving like 18 months in Ukraine fighting with them. And he's like, don't be discouraged. And like, it's hard because we work in an organization. There's a lot of like, prejudice and like that kind of ego in it. Where if you haven't been in combat, you can feel like you're less equal, less, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you don't feel like
less validated, less worthy.
It's like, it's all those things, validation or feeling you're worthy of a position. Like growing up as a guy, I never thought you should ever be a sergeant or a master corporal unless you've been in combat. That's the era I grew up in, right? And so thinking about all this stuff, it's like, wow, like, I put myself in a position where, mind you, all I could do in my battle space was teach. That's all I could do is just fucking teach, man. But now I'm at a point where my game at teaching is very proficient, where I can help them get good at their game because they're not. And teaching them how to deliver the material and content that they have experience with that I don't. It's like a reciprocating two-way process and our military hopefully strategically was looking at it that way because this benefits us in that capacity, where this osmosis or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But I'm there to teach you how to get good at your game, but you're here to teach me how to get good at your game, my game as well. Right? Like, man, those drone like SOPs and stuff like that, it's interesting. It's so necessary. And it felt great to be in a position where I'm like, wow, this is the closest I've been to the fucking front line. And I'm pretty far away from it physically, but the knowledge and the lessons learned are damn close.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I loved it from my experience as a person who's not a veteran of war, But I felt valuable. I felt that even though I've never been in combat, that I can contribute effectively, especially to an audience that has been. But like, stay in your lane, right? Like all these kind of common sense concepts, like, but I'm glad I could help and I'm glad I could make a difference, and
I think we all did.
Yeah.
I think we all learn from each other, including two of us, and in them included, right? And looking into it, it was a very unique experience because there was no that calf authority given, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of like, how do you make him? You don't make him work for you, make him want to work for you.
Exactly.
Right?
Persuasion is such a big part of it, right? It's don't do it because I told you to do it, do it because you want to do it.
And that was a big buy-in.
And,
it ended up working for the most cases for us too.
Yeah.
I know, you mentioned like, not being in combat. It's like, think about it this way, right? Like, you are in combat, not maybe in person, but your knowledge transfers to combat.
The psychological jujitsu.
Like two guys in combat, and if one guy is being shot at, it takes care of the threat. You can say that you saved the guy's life. Well, passing on the knowledge to the guy, and he finds himself a year later somewhere where something you taught him saved his life. It's kind of like an equivalent of being there, saving his life, right? So, it's all about just contributing to the conflict, right? Like, what do you do? Not necessarily everybody has to be at the front line to make a change. Change doesn't come from an individual. Individual is a small piece of a pie, right? And like you say yourself, false multipliers, right? Like instructors. So a lot of these guys have gone back to the front lines, but a lot of these guys who we trained have gone back to schools, and now they're teaching what we taught them. They have the knowledge. They didn't have a way to transfer that knowledge. Now they have it. And I understand the really big importance of standardization throughout the military, right? Like we explained that to them, why it matters and how they have a lot of problems with working together with the different units. How do we make that happen? How do we make it work together? I think there's a lot of work for them ahead, but the wheel has started moving, and even though you're not the big part of it, you're a small part of it. But every small part of a wheel is a part that's important. So
that's well said, Mario. Yo, listen, man, I hope you had a good time coming out here talking. Like, for me, this is an opportunity to volunteer to my community at the regiment to try to offer an opportunity for all of us to share our lessons learned. Like Mario, you're a veteran, but you're somebody that I admire, I respect, for many reasons, to include your past experiences, to include your personality of who you are. You're an amazing person, and I'm glad you're willing to articulate your experiences, because this is education, right? It's not a university course, but there's so much to value and take away from your perspective and knowledge on things. So thanks for sharing, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yo, it's amazing. Thank you. It's definitely a privilege for me, and it is for a lot of people listening. And I hope for guys who are new, young in the military, I keep saying guys, but really the people that are new, young in the military, that you understand that a lot of things that are very rewarding in your career are sometimes very hard to achieve, and it requires a lot of dedication and sacrifice. But know that Sergeant Glasnovic is always around if you have questions about snipers, and plenty of other folks out there too. But thank you for teaching me a lot and understanding. And I'm very glad that you got to do what you got to do in all your deployments. You had a very broad, very diverse kind of deployment experiences. You got to make a lot of impact, and sure, the country is good for it, but the battalion is certainly lucky to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's important. But for everybody listening, today's guest, Mario Glasnovic, Sergeant, 33 RCR, gentleman from the sniper community, and an amazing advocate for the community, to be honest. It's important to communicate and share. A lot of folks don't really understand what they're signing up for, and don't understand the commitment it takes. So if you're thinking about it, do it. If you have questions, ask. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Mario, do you have any final words?
No, lucky to be here and lucky to learn a lot, have learned so far, and looking forward to what else I'm going to learn, including from this guy.